Got to get the glasses on. I got my phone so I won't go on for the 4 hours that I usually do. Oh, got a text from my best friend. I'll read it out, eh? Hey, when you're dead, you don't know you're dead. All the pain is felt by others. Remember, the same thing happens when you're stupid. Okay, good. That was not helpful. Tuatahi ake te mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Te mihi nui kia Ngāti Whakau, rātau te mana whenua o konei, kia te arawa whānui. Kia koutou katoa nā mana, nā tapu o koutou mātua tīpuna, tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Tamati. I'm from Tūhoe, and for those of you that have no idea what that is, we're probably the only iwi that's visible from deep space. Or audible anyway from deep space. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer to addiction, but I do admire the challenge of the problem. Addiction is like wearing nothing but a blindfold, I'm told. It's a loss of control and balance. It's been overtaken by a craving. It is the worst kind of dependency. It's where one feels, when one's feelings and one's behavior is that overwhelmed by failure, guilt, shame, hopelessness, just like being taken hostage and having no explanation for it. In Te Urewera and at home, we put up our hands to make an effort to help people, not necessarily just Tūhoe people, but people with this condition, with this disorder. And I think it's fair for me to say that whoever and whomever coined the phrase, the shit hitting the fan, they came from this place. So, one of my favorite words is a word called preparatory. It's a really cool word, and it means finding out that where you are now is not where you should be. Yeah, preparatory. It's similar to the Māori phrase, mā te wā, or he rā no ki tua. Kind of meaning, all in good time, change will come. That there is the probability of a new life, a better life, and this is what we offer at home with what we call the Mending room. You see, we call it a room rather than a panel of people or advisors or experts, because a room does not belong to one person or a group of people, but it's for everybody that walks into the room, because they're there, because they want to be there, they need to be there. And sometimes in the mending room, the fixing and the repairing and the mending is small, and sometimes it's absolutely overwhelming and great. It goes beyond the person that requires the mending. It involves their family, their neighborhood, their community, and sometimes their whole iwi. And we just want to try our best because we can no longer stand by doing nothing. We cannot just be innocent bystanders that believe we have nothing to offer. So the first thing that we didn't do was go out for funding. The first thing that we did do is make a decision that we should help in some way. So, in the Mending room, recovery is the rule. That is our rule in the Mending room. And that we believe in ourselves, and we believe that we should be making an effort. So, we're starting off really with a reputation rather than a track record. We don't have a science behind us. We do not have evidence. We do not have research. We just care about the people that come into the Mending room. And together we all try our best to get to the bottom of understanding what's going on and what we should do. So, there we are. Our starting point is this reputation. What's our reputation? Well, I've heard from people and friends who are not too hoi, who say that we may have a reputation of being rather willful. We're self-contained. We're obsessed with being autonomous. And sometimes we are monotonous, which is not to be confused with autonomous. Some people find us hostile, probably distrustful amongst ourselves. We're very tribal as well. And I know tribal is used by some people as a word to push people down. It's almost synonymous with being uncivilized. But tribal means, to me, being a kinship organization, not a corporate, not a business. We recognize the kinship connections between us. And being tribal means that you have a connection with the land, connection with your place, with other people, with the world, with the planet. So it's not just, with your cousin or your immediate family. It's connection with all of those things. Some people reckon we have a reputation with being warrior-like. I would say being worried is more like it. Our tribal area is Te Urawera. It's largely intact, in Te Urawera, which stretches from around the town of Tāneatua, just 15 kilometres or so from Whakatane, and all the way to the other side of Lake Waikaremoana. It used to be a national park, and then we made it disappear, just like magic. And now we are the major influence over the natural resources in this area. And in Te Urawera, we are the majority population. We are the most potent economic and political force within Te Urawera. We are the prime culture and social order within Te Urawera. It's quite unusual, really, for an iwi to find themselves in 2018 being in that position. There are no government departments within our tribal area. So when you travel from the north of our tribal area to the south and you come out at Lake Waikaremoana, there are no government agencies, nothing. And the good news is we're in charge. Yeah. So that means that we are responsible for ourselves, and we gladly take on that responsibility. And that is the I think the most severe of all confiscations, the confiscation of responsibility. Land is one thing, resources is one thing, which over time one can repatriate. But when you give up responsibility or that has been taken away from you, how do you get that back? Because it'll take around about 2 or 3 or 4 generations to relearn all of that. To say, no, I no longer want room service. When something happens, I don't go and ring up my MP or the local council to come and fix things up. I walk out the door and go and fix it myself. Or I talk to others of my neighborhood and we fix it up. So that's the responsibility, I think, being a kinship organization. So that's what an iwi is. It's not a corporation, it's not a business. And I know that some iwi look like that, and they probably are. We're not. We believe that as a kinship organization, you inherit governmental duties and governmental functions. That's what an iwi does. So we are a collection of hapu, or extended families, and within the area that I live in, we, in our settlement, gave up our personal right to vote and make decisions. We opted for collective decision-making. So all of the decision-making in my iwi is done by hapu, collectives. And you know what that does? It rids ourselves of personal self-interest. That you make decisions based on what is good for your family, for your neighborhood, for others. That the happiness of others precede your own. So, we don't have secret ballot voting. We don't have, our members are not the 40,000 Tūhoe people that are enrolled, but rather the 30 or 40 hapu families that we recognize as making up our iwi. That's how we make decisions. Is it difficult? No, not really. It's better than the other way because there are so many screens and so many firewalls that hapu have, you cannot manipulate the system for your own personal self-gain. So we're very clear now that our enemy is dependency. Our enemy is the spectre of owning stuff rather than sharing stuff. So, our belief, which is our new word for vision, is Tūhoe permanency. You see, we've decided that we wanted to be permanent, that we did not want to be extinguished or become extinct, but that Tūhoe tana is a fun thing, it's a great thing, and we want it to be permanent. So that's our belief, Tūhoe tana is great, and that our context is permanency by virtue of mana motuhake. Mana motuhake means to take full responsibility for yourself, for others, and for your future. Not to be beholden to others, not to be dependent on others. We think interdependence is great, but we have declared war on dependency. What are our values, or what we call now our virtues? Well, our virtue is our name and the belief that our word is our virtue. So our understanding or our truth about who we are is that not one of us stands alone, that we're all connected. We're connected with each other, we're connected with the land, we're connected with our ancestors, we are connected with our virtues and beliefs, and that it is our duty of honor to practice what you preach and to live up to the standards of behavior that is expected by each other towards each other. So, the worst kind of poverty, I think, is being kahupo, or being spiritually blind. That's the blindfold that I referred to before. That is the worst kind of poverty. And when one is blindfolded, then you are without identity and you are without place. You feel you have no purpose or meaning. So, ka noho tapu wai koe, you live on your footprints. You have nowhere to go, you are homeless. Ka noho whakamau tarawa koe, you are without identity. You are without a sense of belonging. It's the cruelest thing that can happen to a human soul, to feel that you don't belong and that loneliness is your world. So, I think that for many iwi, we are in an unsettled state, even though many of us have settled with the Crown, what many of you know as treaty settlements. But treaty settlements is one thing, but most iwi find themselves in an unsettled state. They are disrupted. And it's normal that in that quagmire, you find imposters, you find ventriloquists, and there is a lot of unlearning to do, there's a lot of relearning to do, there's the job of resetting. You see, one of the things that we've had to do after settlement, which was 4 minutes ago or 4 years ago, is we've had to take account of the damage and injury that has taken place. It's very hard, to self-assess and to come to the truth of preparatory, that where you are is not where you should be, that who you are now is not who you should be. And when you measure that distance, sometimes it's so frightening to realize that it's light years apart. And that's when ventriloquists and imposters come in, see, because the truth is too hard to bear. And so you pretend that it's not so far away. And sometimes you do the wrong thing, that in order to appear settled and to appear to be in control, you do what everybody wants you to do, and you live up to the standards that maybe is expected in New Zealand, which is to make money from your treaty settlement. And so if you got $10, you want to say at the next AGM, I've now got $20. And the AGM after that, you've got $50. So people will say, aren't they nice Maoris? They're really good. They've now got $50 instead of the $10. They're doing really well. Are you really doing well because you've got $50 instead of the $10 you ended up with? Nah, you're not. So we want to live who we should be. We want to find out what our standards are, what our truth and beliefs are. What is the Tūhoe standard of care? What is that? Is that the same as everybody else, or is there something different about that? And how do we do that? How do we learn what that is and practice what it is? So I think it's got something to do with what may be your view of wellness and what is your standard of behavior of wellness. So on this side is a word called toiora, and on the other side is a word that I've already mentioned called kahupo, which means spiritually blind. So to Tūhoe people and maybe to other people is that the opposite of wellness is not death. The opposite of wellness is being blind. You're alive, but you're like a zombie. Your life serves no purpose, no reason, but you're alive, and it's a drudgery, it's a torture filled with hopelessness. That's kahupo. So toiora, wholesomeness, contentment, success, happiness, well-being, wellness. It's all of those feelings which are very, very real to me, but words that all of us here know about. Kahupo, apathy, suffering, failure, misery, dis-ease, loss. So, kahupo, broken person with toiora, a complete person. Person with, that is in the realm of toiora, seeing, they are aware, sensing. Person in the state of kahupo, blind. So, this kahupo word suggests that part of being well has got a spiritual aspect to it, has got a spiritualness to being well. It's not just physical or intellectual or emotional, but there's a spiritual aspect to feeling well, to feeling wholesome and content. The usual word we all know is hauora, but that's more like physical well-being, personal well-being. It talks about the self, your form, your breath. But toiora is the life, the vibe of life, vitality of life. So it's kind of more rounded, I think. So what makes up this toiora concept, this toiora thing? Well, as I'm suggesting to you, there's a wairua dimension to it, or spiritual dimension to it. And when I use the word spirit, please be quick to know that I don't mean religion, and I don't mean a church, not at all. Spiritual suggests that there may be an immortal side to ourselves, that the spirit carries on after everything else craps out. You know, the spirit goes on. That's why so many of us still go and visit our loved ones at the cemetery and start talking to them, because we kind of sense that there's something around, that our loved ones never leave us and we never leave our loved ones. And we sense them, but we're afraid to talk out loud just in case we end up in Ward 8 or somewhere. So anyway, wairua is this spirit, is this immortal energy part of us, and it's very much the imperative in our wellness. That is the thing that we've got to look after first and foremost, because that's the visionary part of us as human beings. Then the other element of toiora is the hinenaro, or the intellect. You know, this is the metaphysical side of the human being. It's there informing us, helping us manage the complexity of life and the complexity of teenagers. Bad. I never want to be a teenager again. I always ask my mother, who's dead now, I always ask her for forgiveness for being a bad teenager, all the lies that I told and all of that. When I was a teenager, the first thing I decided was I needed to be different from my mother, so I was going to break all of her rules. And when she said, boy, you got to be a good boy, I wanted to be bad, because I thought that'll make me find myself. So anyway. So hinenaro, this intellect side of us, it informs us. This is our rational side. It's part of our well-being as well. Then there's our nākau, our emotions, or our whatu manawa, our emotions. This is the part that helps us to be expressive, sometimes in a crazy way, but expressive. Part of our irrational side. Irrational is good, you know. A lot of the scientists tell you that that's how you think out of the box, and that's how you resolve issues, by putting yourself outside the norm and discovering things that human perception cannot see. You know, artists are like that, eh? Composers, you know, poets, crazy people, but we love them because they make us think and feel things that normally we would not. And then there's the tinana component of being well, the physical side. This is our mortal side. It's Unfortunately, it's provisional. We try and buy all of the drugs so we can stay 32, and we go and get all of the operations so we can stay 42. But I need to tell you that the death rate so far is 100%. Don't know if you've noticed that. We haven't got on top of that death thing. So the tinana stops working after a while, for some of us too early, and things start going astray. And then once, of course, you're dead, your nākau shuts up and your hinenaro shuts up, but your wairua apparently keeps going. And we have very few wellness programs for wairua, for the spirit. We're told to go to church. I found that unhelpful myself. But other people find that through music, through art, through walking at the beach, through going to, I don't know, to the bush, spending time with their grandchildren, with their partner, staying somewhere, contemplating. I think that's it, being spiritually connected and all of that. So, the wairua part then, or the spiritual part of our wellness, is what Māori people refer to as your tapu side. My children have always assumed that tapu means don't do it, or you're not allowed. But tapu also means mysterious. It also means we don't know yet. It's a bit like gravity. We all feel it, but we're not too sure how it works. But it works. But we can't explain it. So tapu is something like that. And all of those extraordinary things that is part of our emotions and our intelligence, these can be our extraordinary features of human beings. And then there's our physical being, the thing that makes us really mortal human beings. And there we are. We are the scope and range, and we are the most complex things in nature. We're complicated human beings. And we're still struggling to find out what our standard of care is, and coming to understand that addiction is not an affliction on just an individual, but it can be an affliction that's suffered by a whole community and a neighborhood and a nation. So, we're trying to work these things out. So how does one restore then this tapu or this spiritualness, if that's the imperative for staying well? In order to stay well, if we have to get on board as an ally, our spiritual side to help us with our intellect, emotional and physical side, how do we do that? Well, another word for toiora is mauriora, and some of you may hear a lot of Māori people mentioning this word. Sometimes you hear them repeating on, te hei mauriora, and you wonder, does that mean hi? Does that mean shut up, I'm talking? Or what does that mean? Well, it actually means be vibrant. It actually means let us be full of life. When one says te hei mauriora, it's more of a blessing, really. It's a sentiment. It doesn't mean hello, but it's more of a sanction and a blessing saying, gee, I hope we can maintain this a state of excellence and perfection and ideal, not just at an individual level, but as a people, as a nation, as a community. That's what it means when people say te hei mauriora. So, these aspects of toiora, these elements, they must be in harmony with each other in order to be effectual. They're not like silos separated, but they're interconnected and interdependent. In order for them to be optimal, in order to be potent and bring you and I a deep sense of wellness, these things have got to be taken care of. And if your service, if you are a provider of health and well-being, if you have not got an awareness of all of that scope and array, then you may be an imposter. So, our well-being measures. What are our well-being measures? Well, our well-being measures, I think, as us here experimenting with the Mending room, they are dimensions for a better life. And like every vice that we all enjoy, every virtue that we aspire to is the result of collaboration. So virtues, like vice, are the result of collaboration. We can't do it by ourselves. They do not exist in isolation of anything else. There's nothing in nature that is isolated and lives by itself. Everything is connected. But human perception fails to see this connection between everything. So, every answer and every solution requires cooperation and collaboration. So, as practitioners, as organizations, we have to examine what our connections are. Are our connections just with other people who think like us, who act like us, who behave like us? Or is our connections with other things that may help with our wellness? You know, like the land, like nature, like people who are different from us. So, in the Mending room, we think, this is without proof, in the Mending room, we think Aloha is the virtue from where all healing comes from. And without it, even if you've got lots and lots of money, and lots of experts, and lots of science, lots and lots of research, if Aloha is not a driving virtue in your Mending room, then you are not healing. You are not providing healing. You're providing something else, and I don't have a word for that. Yeah. So the first duty of Aloha, this is from our short experience, the first duty of Aloha is to listen. And whakapono, or trust, is the evidence that Aloha exists. When there is trust in the room, when the thread, the person that is afflicted, decides to come back tomorrow, that's because, it's not because of the catering, it's probably because they sense trust, and they'll come back, and they sense that trust is evidence of genuine Aloha in the room, that they are not just an assignment, you know, they're not the 11:15 appointment, but there's a kinship connection here, and that there is a sense about the state of their wairua, hine naro nā kau and tinana. So, if there is no Aloha there, sometimes, and I'm one of them, I used to be hateful to the person with addiction because I thought it was all their fault. And sometimes I used to think that they probably deserved it because they made a wrong decision. But I've been told by people better than myself that hateful judgments in this environment makes you blind. that's the blindfold. That there will never ever be any truth in hate. If your approach is to hate the addiction or the person addicted, you will find no truth, and hate is really good at offering problems. It never offers any solutions, while Aloha is the thing that sets you free. So it's the presence of Aloha, compassion, care. It's the presence of that and its cohorts called Atawhai and Manaki in your mending room. That is what has to be present there. Also, we've found in our short experience that the presence of someone that you cannot or you will not disappoint is very important as well. So for the person afflicted, finding that person that they regard as so important to them, it may be mum, it may be granddad, it may be their best friend, it may be their niece or nephew, but finding that person that they never wish to disappoint is the thread that takes you from the start to the end. That person does not necessarily need to know anything about addictions. They're just there because the one afflicted cares about them, and they care about the one that is afflicted. And that's the inspiration, that's the thing that the one afflicted makes them carry on, it makes them step up again and stand up again after they have relapsed for the 78th time. And they come back again because they're sorry that they've disappointed that person that they love, and they want to do it again. And sometimes it is another person because the afflicted one has already disappointed themselves. And that makes it very hard for everyone. So, that's why making recovery the rule of the mending room is a must. We must not cloak it in any other word that may get us off the hook. So, our mending rooms must always be respectful and a place that gives dignity to everybody. It is where everyone who comes there choose to be there. This is where our solutions and our answers are personalized. They're not off the shelf and generic, but they are personalized as we can make them. They are whānau and family inspired and attracted. We cannot do this without them. Can't do it. And they are threaded, our mending rooms are threaded by the value of care. We do this because we care, not because there's available funding from the DHB. So, what else have we found useful? Well, there's whakapapa, and as some people believe whakapapa is very complicated, well, here's my working description of whakapapa. Whakapapa are our standards of behavior, our sense of responsibility, and our sense of belonging. That's it to me. That's what whakapapa is. And we need that to be part of our mending room. So, another part of it that we may use is tikana, or customs and traditions, beliefs. I don't mean the tribal kind, how to say a speech or sing a waiata. No, tikana are those things that exist to protect your whakapapa. Tikana are the traditions that exist to protect our standards. That's what they are. They help us to measure the quality of our values, the quality of our work. Tikana are the principles and the beliefs of our commitment to practice. Wairu, our spirit, is our consciousness, our intuition, and our compassion. That's the raising agent, just like when you're baking a bread, Wairua is the raising agent of care. That's where care comes from. That's where Aloha comes from. Aloha comes from the puku, emotions. It doesn't come from the head. It's not an intellectual byproduct, Aloha. It's a feeling, it's an emotion. Yeah. Tapu is important too, the recognition and awareness of tapu, because tapu is to me just self-worth. It's your sense of sanctity, it's your sense of esteem and having purpose. And when that is empty, it needs to be refilled. And your mending room and my mending room seeks to find ways in which to fill up a purpose and a sense of real esteem, not pretend one, not a plastic one. Sense of mauri, or awareness of the truth, of feeling like a good human being, a decent person. That's what mauri is. And mauri is where authentic values come from. Mauri is another word for our moral compass, our inspiration for doing good, for doing right. And again, some people who are victims of that disorder, addiction, have lost their way and have lost that, and they need help to rebuild that. As with their mana, their judgment of their worth, their capability, their ego, their reputation, their perception of themselves as part of a family and community, all of that has to be restored. It's a little wonder then that people who, like you, who work in this area are very, very difficult to replace. There's not a long queue of people saying, oh, I'd like to do that. That sounds like a great job. Yes. What, 24/7? Yeah, I think I can do that, yeah. Yes. No holidays, great. Yes. So, toi ora or Māori ora is relative to the individual as much as it is to the community, to the family, to a nation. So, it must be, I think, as I'm suggesting to you, a criteria for your practice, for practitioners and for organizations, that your description of well-being is not just this narrow thing that is either intellectual well-being or physical well-being, because these things interact. When one abuses someone emotionally, there is a consequence spiritually for all of that. So, and toi ora is this thing that lies beneath the feet of feeling good. And so we repair it by offering genuine and regular experiences of wana, wehi, and ihi. What are these things? Ihi is the feeling of the rapture and euphoria of being alive. Happiness of being alive. Wehi is that feeling of appreciation, awe, and wonder about being alive. And wana is the thrill and the excitement and joy about being alive. And too many of our children, many Māori, grow up without these building blocks of a decent human being. And it is our moral duty as schools, as families, as communities, as neighborhoods, to provide genuine experiences of these things. It doesn't matter if you're 7 years old or 79 years old, we all need regular vaccine doses of ihi, wehi, and wana to make us feel alive, to make us feel belonging and make us feel well. And without it, we are lesser of a person. We feel less good, less well. So, these things deters and repels despair, drudgery, sorrow, feeling of being enslaved. It discards and lifts the blindfold. It gives connection between me as a person, finding purpose and meaning and reason to have a new and a better life. It battles the urge to concede to guilt, shame, and failure. These things, this is the voice of the warrior, not the hostage. So, I'd like to end up by saying to you that, and fate whispers to the warrior, you are the warrior. And fate whispers to the warrior, beware, a great storm approaches. And the warrior replies back, I am the storm. Te hei mauri ora kia koutou. Kia ora.